A peace deal in the Middle East. The hostages are all home. It's undeniable the success of U.S. President Donald Trump in making this deal and ending this war, getting all those world leaders, particularly in the Middle East, to sign on to a peace deal. And you would think that after all this happened, those Hamasniks who were screaming in the streets, those protesters who were marching up and down our roads and terrorizing Jewish communities for the last 2 years would have said, good, it's time to take a rest now and move forward and rebuild. Well, they're not doing that. In cases, many of them are silent. And in others, they're taking over PA systems at airports to declare a success for Hamas. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Lorrie, Goldstein, Brian Lilley, and Warren Kinsella. Warren, the initial reaction, of course, and thoughts on the deal, getting this done, putting it over the finish line, and finally seeing all those Arab nations and the countries coming together to make sure that this war ends in Gaza and Israel's hostages are returned home. Not as many as alive as we would have liked to have seen, but home nonetheless. Your response to that, and then the reaction that should have come from those that were yelling for it.
Well, last week, and it was like going to the dentist for me. I had to say nice things about what Donald Trump had done, but I meant them. He deserved credit for the deal. But then when he was asked about what was happening in the succeeding days, he said, well, let Hamas do what Hamas has to do. That's an exact quote. And so what has Hamas been doing? They've been slaughtering people, innocent Gazans in the streets in Palestine, so-called Palestine. And they've not been making good on their part of the deal, as you point out, returning the remains of fallen Israelis and fallen Israeli soldiers. So, those of us, I guess we're all pessimists. All of us were happy that this deal took place, but I think all of us said it's unlikely to hold. The Middle East, that part of the world, has been in a perpetual, more or less, state of conflict since before Israel was formally created in 1948. So the question wasn't whether the war would end in whatever form the war takes. It's whether it was manageable. And so far, the war is being managed. Palestinians continue to suffer, and that's a terrible thing. But Israelis continue to suffer as well. At some point, I guess what we're all waiting for is see what Prime Minister Netanyahu does. Does he decide to reopen the war as a consequence of 10 deceased Israelis not being returned to Israel? There's a big risk for him in that. It was very different when he was seeking the return of the 20 living hostages. All of us have been to Israel recently, and we've seen the country that was their central focus, was those living hostages. Well, now they've gotten those back. The posters at Ben Gurion Airport are gone. And so is Israel as preoccupied with that issue? And are they willing to restart the war? I hope not. I hope not. But it looks to me like Hamas is trying to provoke a reaction and restart the conflict. And if you look at their charter, if you look at their past behavior, that's all that they prefer. That's all that they know is perpetual bloodshed and conflict.
Lorrie, your reaction and the subsequent response to what has unfolded in the last 48 hours.
Well, first of all, as a Jewish person, the release of those Israeli hostages was meaningful for everyone around the world. And I'm sorry, Trump is the only president who could look at the difference between the approach of Obama and Biden compared to Trump. They wanted to negotiate with Iran. Trump said, no, we're not going to negotiate. We're going to blow up your nuclear capacity. And if you keep trying this, we'll basically unleash hell on you. In his first term of office, Trump and his son-in-law developed the Abraham Accords. And the fruition of that was in this deal. Suddenly, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, with the largest Muslim population in the world, were all for this peace deal. In other words, the release of the hostages wasn't magical. It was preceded by things that led up to it. For heaven's sakes, India, Pakistan, China, Russia all supported the deal. In terms of what's going to go forward, I think that Warren is very astute on these issues, and I think he's right. There may be an interest in both Netanyahu and Hamas not wanting the next phases of this deal to go through. Having said that, Trump set up the deal. It's now up to others to implement it. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm hopeful, but just for a moment now, let's go to Canada's position on all this.
Oh my God!
Having damaged Trump's efforts, along with France and the UK, when they recognized the state of Palestine prior to all this, he charters a plane and goes to Egypt to be there. Okay. And Trump is gracious, he introduces him. There's a joke about he called him the president and blah, 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 blah. It's nonsense. But here's the plan that Canada and these other nations endorsed. It is that Hamas will be disarmed by next year. Not just disarmed, dismantled by next year, so that the Palestinian Authority, which is the Fatah party, which rules in the West Bank and which is opposed to the Hamas in Gaza, somehow they're miraculously going to disarm Hamas, and there's going to be free and fair elections by the PA president, Mahmoud Abbas, who has delayed elections since 2006 because he can't win one. And so it's really this consistent problem with the Carney government, which we see on the economy, on the trade issue, on the EVs. It's this nonsensical, rose-colored view of what's going to happen. Having said that, though, the most important thing to me is that we now have the potential of Israel being allied. Like if Saudi Arabia signs a peace treaty, that will be enormous. Egypt and Jordan already have them. Qatar and UAE, that will be enormous because it will constrain Iran, which is the real problem. Iran is the funder of Hamas. It's the funder of Hezbollah. It's the funder of the other terrorist groups. So I'm hopeful in that sense. But for an end of the suffering of the Palestinians, and absolutely, I mean, get that humanitarian aid in there, rebuild the place. That would all be good. But I am hopeful from a macro level. But in terms of suffering of the Israelis, and no, this is the fifth war between Hamas and Israel since 2008. And the idea that there won't be another one, it's hard to believe that.
It's hard to keep count of how many presidents, Brian, have tried to get something like this done, even the contours of a deal done. You see Yasser Arafat walking away from Bill Clinton just when he thought he had something, ready to negotiate, ready to sign. But here we are now. There is it's a tenuous thing to look at this, how the success of this peace deal will go on moving forward based on Hamas and their actions, and who's holding them accountable, who is going to disarm them ultimately, and their reaction. They don't have the funding anymore. Iran is decimated because Israel took care of that problem with that assistance of the United States. UAE or Qatar has said you cannot be harbored here anymore. They want to be part of a prosperous deal going on in the Middle East moving forward. I'm wondering from your perspective, the deal as it stands, looking forward, but also acknowledge some of the reaction or non-reaction we've seen since this was announced.
I would say that part of the reason that I have hope in the deal lies in how many countries signed on to it, neighboring countries. that are saying that they will step in and try and help secure the peace. That gives me some hope. Absolutely, I agree with Lorrie and with Warren that, you know, does Netanyahu really want the peace deal to succeed? Does Hamas want the peace deal to succeed? Hamas is the bigger worry for me. Um, but the fact that so many neighboring countries have stepped forward and said that they want this to work, that to me, that gives hope. So, you know, Mark Carney unilaterally recognized a Palestinian state. As I wrote in a column earlier this week, had he worked with Trump, he could have said, we're going to achieve what you want. We're going to achieve a Palestinian state, and it will be more successful because what Trump has done, this peace deal will result in a Palestinian state. And it has a greater chance of success because of all those neighboring countries saying that they will support it, saying that they will fund it, saying that they will give infrastructure and structure to the how the government operates. That gives it a better chance of success. Do I have concerns that that it could all fall apart in a moment? Absolutely. But there is hope that because of the way this is structured, it could work. We should have been working with Trump instead of working against him.
Yeah.
In doing that unilateral declaration. We actually helped prolong the war, as did France, as did
That's right.
Britain, because
Yeah.
Hamas walked away from ceasefire talks at that moment in time. And then eventually it was due to the strike on Hamas leadership, the attempted strike on Hamas leadership in Qatar, the pressure from the Qataris to say to Hamas, you've got to accept this, and the pressure from Trump on Netanyahu to say you've got to accept this. Those are the things that worked, not Mark Carney's preening on the world stage. So, look, we will see in weeks, not even months, whether this holds. But there is at least a structure in place to try and make it work, and for that reason, I've got hope.
Warren, last word to you. I want to play this audio, just proving once again the rot that has encroached in people's brains on this side in North America about this issue. Just have a listen to some of this audio from a PA system in Kelowna.
القسم للقدس العزيزة
So that was a broadcast over the public announcement system at the Kelowna airport. Happened in other cities and in the United States as well. That's their reaction to what has unfolded. Warren.
Yeah, and I wasn't getting on a plane like you were, but it made my blood run cold. I wasn't surprised with the support of all of you. I've been able to write a book about the propaganda war against Israel in the West, and it's coming out soon. And it's about this type of thing, how they've gone into Wikipedia, into Reddit, how they've manipulated and used propaganda to turn the West, particularly young people, against Israel. The thing that made my blood run cold about the Kelowna and other airport situation, it happened in Victoria, happened in Vancouver, and it happened across the United States, is, they hacked into the display boards. Well, there's teenagers who've done that. They hacked into the audio system, as you've just played. That's a little less funny. The thing that made me most concerned is, well, if they're doing that, don't they have the capability to hack in to the air traffic control system? And just think of the consequences of that. Mm-hmm. This is Hamas and those who favor Hamas saying to those of us in the West, we're not gone. We're not done. We're not finished with you. We will continue our war. We may be defeated militarily by Israel in the Middle East, but we are going to continue our war against you. And I think that's what we saw this week, is a warning shot across our bow.
As of now, the deal stands, And peace in the Middle East is still tenuous, but holding. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to thetorontosun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.